There's a lot of nice to haves at the moment, but the nice to haves, they're just draining cash if you're not actually using them. Limit your spending. Bring it back to the tools and resources that you actually need. You need to renew what you're actually paying for. Welcome to the Business Behind Your Business podcast. We have the conversations here to help your business grow and thrive. I'm Paul Sweeney, your host. I'm a chartered accountant and certified business advisor, helping you, sharing experience with you to help you grow your business. We're looking at this situation of what we call zombie spending. It's a really good way to describe what we've come across as spending or continual spending in this zombie state where you're not even thinking about what you're spending. Recently, we talked about improving cash flow, and we talked about putting a lid on subscriptions creep and stopping that payment for applications and tools that you're not actually using in your business. So we're going to delve a little bit more into that because we've had some feedback and some extra questions. I just wanted to touch on why it's such a big issue. I came across an article recently and an organization called ramp.com, and they likened subscription creep to death by 1,000 cuts. That is exactly what subscription creep is. It's all those small amounts, those software fees, those little subscriptions, the $10, $15, $20, $30 a month here and there, and they just all build up and they just drain your cash reserves dry. They cause a big dent in your spending, and they do it without you noticing. They're so small amounts, but when you put them all together, they add up to a huge sum in a lot of cases. So it's something that we've seen become more of an issue, particularly in the last decade, and even more so since we've had a lot more people working from home where that visibility is not there. A lot of people are saying they're really struggling with cash, and it comes back to maximizing the value of what you're spending on. And if you're spending on things that you're not getting value out of, you need to cut that off. You need to cut that off. And particularly where it is tight. Cash flow is tight. Lending for small, medium businesses is getting tighter and tighter, particularly from traditional lenders. And then, of course, the next style of lender is charging quite high rates. Do you think this is a problem? I do, and I'm seeing it in a lot of the businesses I work with, but I've seen some research published recently. Let's go back. So 2018, there's a digital consulting firm called West Munro, and they published this results of this poll talking about the state of subscription services spending. And the people that they serviced, 84% of them underestimated how much they actually spent on monthly subscriptions. 84%. Now, in August 2021, they ran that same survey, and the number of people who underestimated their spending, it increased to 90%. So it's an increasing thing. So you would think that where cash is tight and we're trying to keep a closer eye on what we're spending, that number would actually come down. We'd be paying closer attention to where we're spending. But in fact, it's actually gone up. It's gone up quite significantly. So what sorts of things are we paying for that are going to cause this kind of subscription creep, the zombie spending? We're looking at things here that we don't use anymore or we never used. We signed up for a tool or process and nobody really started using it. We created no value, but when we signed up, there was an automatic subscription or an automatic renewal, and we've just forgotten it's there. But 12 months later, we've got this charge on our card and we've renewed that subscription that we're not using. Sometimes when we have staff turnover, and we've seen that quite a bit recently, when somebody leaves an organization, maybe their subscription is for a tool that they used or they specifically used. So how is that cancelled? Can you actually cancel it if they're not there? How do you actually manage it? It's a bit of a messy situation. So if you've got somebody leaving your organization, you need to be aware of what subscriptions they've actually got and the renewal date. So you should be tracking this. Recently, we downgraded one of our subscription services here in the office because we weren't getting the value out of the subscription package that we were subscribed to. Our actual usage was on a much lower level. So by downgrading that service, we've actually unlocked a significant amount of savings by revisiting the services that we're actually using in this tool. We've actually saved $5,000 to $6,000 annually just on one service. So it's prompted us to have a closer look at the things that we're actually using and making sure that we're really getting the value from them. Are we getting the value from the services that we subscribe to? I had this conversation with a bookkeeper just this week, actually, and we were comparing some of the services that businesses sign up for and don't get the value out of. And one of the ones that comes to mind is often employment or HR services, where you sign up and you commit to an annual amount, but you don't understand what you're getting and you don't actually use it. You don't have anybody in your business that's driving that expenditure, and you don't use it appropriately, and then you're not actually covered for something that you think you are, and then you have to go and spend more money with another professional. So you're paying for something you're not going to use. So if you don't understand what you're buying, don't sign off. Don't commit to it. Just take a step back and think about, is there an alternative here? Is there an alternative? Because there is generally going to be an alternative which actually suits you better. It might be a cheaper alternative, or it might be more effective. It might only give you the tools and the resources that you are actually going to use. It might not have the bells and whistles. It might not be as pretty, but if it's just what you were going to use and it's a cheaper alternative, then it may be more suitable. The other thing we see a lot of is people subscribing to services or tools that they already have access to as part of their Office 365 or Google Suite. It's actually staggering the number of applications in those programs, in those suites of tools, the number of applications in there that you actually have access to as part of your Office 365 or your Google Suite. It's staggering. I didn't know that we had so many applications available to us as part of our subscription. But when I look at it, I'm going, well, why am I paying for this other tool? Why am I paying for it? What's the advantage of that other tool compared to what we're using? And in a lot of cases, I'm going, well, there actually is no advantage. So let's just stop using that. Who is actually using that in our office? What's the benefit we're getting from it? Does it warrant the extra cost that we're expending? And a lot of times the answer is no. So what we've done is we've actually turned off the tap there. We've turned off that spending. We've taken back control. We're in charge of our spending, and we're actually just only spending on the tools and resources that we really need that are critical. There's a lot of nice to haves at the moment, but the nice to haves, they're just draining cash if you're not actually using them. Limit your spending. Bring it back to the tools and resources that you actually need. You need to review what you're actually paying for. How many licenses do you have? Particularly if you've got movements in team, movements in your employee numbers. If you had people leave, are you paying for more licenses? Or the other thing is, does everybody actually need to use that program? Do you need to have a license for everybody in your organization? Or is it only used by one or two key people? And if it's only used by one or two people, why pay for a license for everybody that's not going to use it? So have a closer look at it. And look, you can go through your general ledger in your accounting system, in your Xero or your QuickBooks or whatever system you're using, and just review what you're spending in the last 12 months and make a note of it, and then identify who's actually using that application, that software, that subscription, that service that you're paying for regularly or an annual subscription. Identify who's using it and get them to give you a business case for why they should continue to have that access, why they continue to need that service or that software. And if they can't come up with a justification for it in terms of what's the return on the investment in that tool, then maybe it's say you have the hard word and say, well, look, okay, that's a nice to have, but it's not essential to what we're doing. And we're going to actually not renew that program. We're going to get you to use this, which we're already paying for. Or, maybe there's a different way that we can actually manage that process using something different that's going to give us a better outcome. But have that review of where you're spending, look at the due dates, and look, one of my key things is turn off those automatic renewals. Turn off the annual renewals, because they're the ones you forget about. And all of a sudden you see this charge and you go, why are we still renewing that? Nobody's using it. So turn that off. Okay, go back in there. I know a lot of them ask you to put it on when you subscribe, but make sure you go back in and turn it off. And the one we see a lot is people sign up for a course or a program and they don't actually get the benefit from it, or they only do, say, one of the 10 videos and they never finish the process. So I think you need to ask for more accountability from your employees when you're giving them access to those things. When you're actually spending the money, get some justification for why that is actually needed and how it's going to benefit you, how it's going to benefit your business, how it's going to benefit that employee before you actually spend. And just take a step back and say, well, is there another way that we can do it? Is there another way? Because there's a lot of free information around. There's also some bad free information around. There's a lot of free tools, or there's a lot of tools included in the content you're already paying for. So if there's tools and resources and help available in what you're already paying for, use that first. And then if there's a gap, go and pay for something else. Okay. Look, it does take a bit of energy to do this. It does take and that's why I guess it's left unchecked. Nobody actually follows up on it. We look at it and it's a small amount of spending, so it's not worth our time or effort. But when we add them all up, it is a big deal. It's also a way of just getting people to be more accountable about how they're doing things and think, well, hang on, is this the best use of our time? Is this the best use of our resources? Look, if we do not control this zombie spending, then it adds up, but it will cause real financial damage. We need to take control of it. Okay, but also the other thing that comes to mind is if you've got all of these different subscriptions, there are so many different points of access where your data is out there, or where emails are out there, or accounts are out there, your credit card details are out there. Just scale that back, take back control. Take back control over what you've got. Because, look, at the end of the day, it erodes your cash flow. If you continue with this zombie spending, you're going to erode your cash flow. You're going to reduce your profit. Resources could be used elsewhere. And we want to avoid those things. We want to have a great business. So take a look at it. Take the time, allocate somebody in your business, give them the role of being the subscription checker or the zombie prevention officer. Get them to stop, review all your spending and work out which subscriptions you can eliminate, which services you don't need to keep paying for that are not actually creating any value for you. When you can do that, you can add up. Those small things will add up to a big difference. So thank you again for listening. Look, if you've got questions, please get in contact with us. We like to hear your questions, and we like to bring those conversations to you where we can answer those questions and bring in the expert experience and background to help you with that issue that you're facing. We want you to run a great business. We want other people to run great businesses. So please keep listening and make sure you share what you've learned, or if you're a subscriber, please encourage other business owners that need to hear this, encourage them to listen as well. So if you want to get in touch with us, reach out to us at podcast@thebusinessbehindyourbusiness.com, or you can use the link in the show notes.